Okay, let's start our third section. This one is actually similar to the previous one, but we have further encapsulated it into a skill. You can compare them, is our agent, right? The most commonly used function called MC. What's the difference between this skill? Look at this table, right? This actually, if it's a user, right? And say a command, right? And say a command like this. But in fact, it needs to call 3 MCPs, right? In fact, we are equivalent to we call 1 MCP each time, right? And then each large model may choose MCP. There may be problems, right? If one step is not right, it's only 3 steps, and then 10 more steps, right? One step goes wrong. It may become more and more outrageous, right? But if we encapsulate skills, you can think of it as actually encapsulate some MCPs, right? You simply think of it this way. Of course, there are some logical judgments in it, right? These things, right? Okay. We can think skills are our MCPs or tools, which is further encapsulation to complete a more complete task. And some logical judgments can be added, right? And some prompts and so on. So as we said, here we have actually packaged 3 skills, right? The first is a hardware detection, right? And divided into 3, right? The second is deployment, because it needs to be deployed and it requires some fees, right? Let's simply explain this to you. The code actually runs through and there are results, okay? Overall, let's take a look at it. Okay. First, we must write down these 2 Ks. This is for intelligence. To adjust the large model, this is for adjusting MCP, which is equivalent to our cloud, which is to apply for a server. Okay, this is MCP. This is which is exactly the same as before. It's just to use the MCP tools and other things, right? There are basic wrappers. The most important thing is to look at skills, right? Skills are actually the same at the core, whether we write it in Markdown or we package it into a function, right? It's probably like this. Aligo, a name, and a description, which is the description and some parameters, and handle various SCPs and some logic, right? Okay. The large model actually depends on this description, right? To determine which skill to choose. Of course, it is automatically selected, right? Okay. Look at the registration skill below it. The specific encapsulation of a skill, right? We directly write it as in the form of a function, right? Of course, it's all in the form of JSON, right? In addition, you can actually make it like this. A markdown, and then in markdown format, right? In markdown format can also to include the Python function directly, right? Okay, let's take a look, right? It's actually a step-by-step determination. See, right? To call it. It's that simple. Okay, yes. It's the same when written in Markdown. It can include some Python code in the middle. Yes. This is another skill. Yes, it's deployable. Let's take a look. Yes. Right? The first one, first price, right? And then estimate, right? This is the whole thing. Let's take a look. Which are the elements we just mentioned, right? Not, and a description. This is the tool. Each of them corresponds to a tool. And another tool, and then let's see how to use it in the end, right? If it works, let's look at the key. We have also encapsulated a chat, but the key point is here. Let's take a look. First, the large model is, right? We use it as a tool, right? Okay, and then when calling it, everyone can see that, right? I'm actually in this reply judgment part. Let's take a look. This is a loop, right? Actually, we may have called multiple twos or FCP, right? Actually, it is executed in order to execute according to our Damias judgment. The key is actually here, right? If it's called by the agent, there is only one, right? One for drawing, right? Of course, there are some sequential executions. You can write it as which has no logical judgment. Actually, the agent also supports it now, right? But there is no such logical judgment. Right, okay. That's about it. You can call it to try it. Right, okay. This is our actual description, right? Right? That's what it is. Yes. And then it actually returns these things in the end, right? It actually tells you which skills have been used, right? Okay. Like this, right? This is its reply. Below are different calls. Okay. It's similar. You can try it yourself. Right. Including writing some instructions yourself. In fact, The whole logic is like this. The whole logic is like this. He determine which skill to hit through this description, right? And then execute the logic in the middle of MCP. That's more or less how it works. Okay, the core is that. Actually, you can see this, right? Okay. The difference between Notebook 2 and Notebook 3, right? The most crucial point is that it calls step by step, right? Put the result of the first step into the second step, and then step by step is a workflow, right? But the workflow is displayed, and you need to call it step by step yourself. But skills actually encapsulates these step by step things. It's all encapsulated, right? Right? Take a look. Are all encapsulated? Finally gives an answer, right? This is very certain, but in this case, there may be a step. Maybe there's a problem with this. The following part may be wrong. Right, okay. So to sum up, we can actually think of it as a combination of skills, which becomes a skill by combining MCBs. To complete a task, okay, you can take a look at this by yourself. Done. There may be a little problem in Collab. Sometimes it will, some IPs may not be able to execute. Of course, you can do it yourself. I can run it locally and it works fine, right? You can also make a GPU by yourself, right? Okay. I'm running this locally. Well, you can take a look at this by yourself. Okay? Yeah. Right. That's basically all there is to it. And the first one is actually MCP, right? The second is agent, and the third is skill. If you learn it, you can actually know what the current agent framework is like. Right. Okay. Even the skill is further encapsulated as happiness. Right. It's just packaging the skill again. Right. It's one level higher. This belongs to the category of cloud code, right? Right. We usually package this. We usually package it as a skill, right? And then put it in the cloud code for direct use. That's all for this chapter's course.